reaching up and making the grab. Odell Beckham Jr. Stafford buys time. Protection is good, and so is the pass. Henderson came out of the backfield. Jefferson in motion. Henderson, nice cutback. Stafford rolling and throwing. Caught, touchdown. Stafford caught on the run. Cup, who else? Out of the slot to the right, looks that way, fires that way. Cup makes the grab at about the 18-yard line. Pass, Cup, got it, touchdown. Burrow trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. It looked like P-Ron might have had a shot to make the grab, but the Rams now running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who? Guess who? I mean, you don't even have to think about it. Do not even have to think about it.
Pointing to the ring finger.
Hey guys, and welcome to another East Coast Rams podcast. I am your co-host Ashton, while my awesome co-host, as always, Zac. How you doing, Zac? It's not an eventful week at all.
No, but the trumpets are playing, the drums are beating, and the war of fandom has begun. I think Rams fans, commenters, analysts, everybody is going to war against each other on the latest news of this week. But there's been a whole lot of news coming after, week one of I guess this is week two of the post Super Bowl time.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a lot to dive into. How are you?
Yes, Zac. I'm doing good. Guys, we're doing a mini podcast. We weren't expecting to do a podcast this soon. Typically we go a little bit slower in the off season, but the Rams, we're not following our timeline at all, Zac, and a lot of teams, we've already seen it, are starting to cut down because of the cap deadline on March 15th. And believe it or not, the Rams are not in the worst situation compared to a lot of other teams, as we've been talking about. But they were 15 mil, I believe, over the cap. Or 14, 15 mil over the cap as of right now. I think they're a little bit lower, and we'll talk about this first. After cutting Bobby Wagner, let's say this. It was a surprising move to some fans, given the fact of his performance, and he had a 5-year deal. Now, the Rams did structure the deal to be very maneuverable after the first year. Credit to Snead for that. Zac, do you like this move? Is it a good move cap-wise? Is it a bad move? And I guess we can segue that into talking about like where you think this team is going.
Yeah, when you first think about it, you're like, what in the world is happening? But then you think about it and you kind of go realistic. You look at the contract, and this was the out, and this was the easy out. I mean, it was a $50 million contract. After this year, you were going to be eating up a lot more dead cap if you tried to trade or cut them or anything like that. So definitely a smart move on the Rams. I didn't really kind of enjoy.
They say 5 mil.
5 mil. So the one thing I didn't really enjoy was they were like, yeah, the Rams are saving cap space and that Bobby Wagner wants to go on a winning team. That was the only part that kind of just like, maybe that was just bad reporting or what, but it's like, I get it. I know you don't want to go through another big season, but like, if this was a season where, I mean, I truly believe like, and we'll talk about this more going into the other things too, but like if the Rams were in a spot where there was no plans to rebound from this year, this would have been the perfect opportunity for McVay to leave. This would have been a perfect opportunity for AD to retire. this would have been a perfect opportunity for Stafford to retire and and just let Raheem Morris take over and go that way. And that's not what's happening. So some of these moves that are being made right now are interesting. But I think we've talked over some of the potential cuts over the last two pods, three pods, anyways. But yes, Bobby Wagner was interesting only because of the performance that he did. He was a first year captain. He played his heart out. He was very successful on the defense.
Our best
But
defensive player last year.
for sure. But when you look at it holistically, the Rams, even if you took Bobby Wagner out of it, the linebacker position was never truly the Rams' weakest point of the defense. You kind of look it back and you kind of see who we won the Super Bowl without Bobby Wagner, and I think our defense played pretty well, but we didn't have a healthy team, so you have to take that into consideration. What are your thoughts on the matter?
I get why Snead did it, money wise. There's two parts to this. This affirms my belief that after this year, they're going to go full rebuild. After this season, 100%. We may be there right now, and that's kind of, I don't know where he's kind of going with this offseason, and we'll have to wait and see. Um, AD coming back, I believe now if AD would have retired, they would have full on rebuilt this offseason. I think they might have kept Stafford, but they probably would have given him an option to retire too or something like that. But either way, AD's coming back. So we're caught in this weird in between mode. And this is dangerous. A lot of teams that stay in this kind of like not full rebuild, but still trying to make half moves. Those are the teams that always do bad and almost always struggle because like if you're stuck in mediocrity, and we saw this with a few teams for a while, you're going to continue just be at 8-9 wins. And don't get it wrong, if we were fully healthy, we would have been an 8 to 9 to 10 win team. That's just the real reality of things. um, and I think you have to make adjustments. I'm going to be interested to see what they do with Allen Robinson after this. Uh, and we can go into Leonard Floyd and all that. As Zach, what do you think is going on with Leonard Floyd?
Yeah, and honestly, before I checked our show notes for today, I missed that completely of this week. I'm not sure how I did, but I go back and I actually I pulled up his tweet and I kind of looked at his reporting. So his tweet was, "I know what I bring to the club. All I'm saying," and you have two mindsets. Mindset is number one, he's having internal talks, but they don't typically report on internal talks. Um, I think more or less he's seen what everybody else is saying. He's seen what's being reported. He's seen what the fans are saying and who should be cut and things like that. And I don't necessarily think that anytime a player tweets, it's because of an internal battle. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times, and we'll even talk about the Jalen Ramsey stuff too. But in the end,
Mm.
I don't really know if I take this as what a lot of other players are saying is like he's the next one gone. Now, yes, would he free up some cap space?
He would,
What
if
is
it's
it?
post June, it's a lot of cap. He would free up 15 mil alone if you were to trade him post June. Now, so this, sorry. So
But
Zach, uh, this is key when talking about salaries and contracts, stuff like this. When looking at the cap situation, pre-June, it would only be 3 mil, so it doesn't make sense pre-June to trade or cut Leonard Floyd. It doesn't, and so we won't see anything. We shouldn't see anything with him until that deadline. After that deadline, Zach, um, especially if they want to go after some other free agents, uh, potentially, but is it going to be anytime soon? I would highly doubt it. With 3 mil in savings.
Yeah, I mean, even the Bobby Wagner. I think there was when I was doing a little bit of homework on the salary cap. There was also this. His cap charge right now will be 7.5 million in the form of dead money. If the Rams designate him a post June cut, they would save 8 million this year, but that's because they would spread that 8 million over 2 years. So they could still be kind of smarter too on how they do the Bobby Wagner, whether it's whatever their official, because all these things that we're getting are all reports. And yes, they are parting ways, but the exact designation of when they're parting ways maybe June 1st, maybe not. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, Leonard Floyd does bring something to this defense, but the problem is that we still don't have edge rushers, and Leonard Floyd is our only, true edge rusher that we have right now. And if we decide to move on from him,
Mhm.
we don't really have anybody. I mean, we're looking to somebody to replace Von Miller, and we weren't very successful about that. And so now having to replace that position on top of Leonard Floyd's position, leaving AD, you know, seemingly by himself. I mean, yes, assuming that we get Greg Gaines back. I mean, even
Mhm.
assuming Ashawn Robinson comes back, like, I mean, even if you don't assume that, you're leaving AD with a very, you know, young, maybe too young of a defense for him to play and to play successfully at. And it's just a big shift. I mean, you think about this. If the Rams truly decide, I mean, we have Raheem Morris back. If we really are shuffling our complete defense. I mean, right now we're looking at Bobby Wagner gone. We're looking at, if this Leonard Floyd thing is true, Leonard Floyd gone. If Jalen Ramsey's thing is true, Jalen Ramsey gone. So we literally have just lost 3 levels of our defense, pretty much the stars of all three, other than AD. But let's say AD since he was out. But I mean, you're missing big, impactful players on 3 levels of the defense.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting why they are doing this, and what their plan is. Like, we can have our thoughts about like me and you, like what we would do. We can have thoughts about what they are doing and whether we agree with them or not. But ultimately, Les Need is gonna do what Les Need wants, and uh, let's segue this into the Ramsey stuff. First off, again, it is laughable anyone would suggest that we would cut him. People are doing that for clicks. It is nuts. The Rams wouldn't cut Ramsey even if he wasn't going to play. If he said, I'm not going to play for the Rams anymore, I'm going to just sit, the Rams wouldn't cut him for 600K in savings. They would just keep him on their team and let him sit for a year. It clearly they're not going to cut him, and it kind of made me laugh because some fans of other teams were like, oh well, the Rams are going to have to just take whatever they want to get because they're desperate. But I like how when the Rams are trading a star player, we're desperate to trade him away when he's only going to save us 5 mil in cap. And now we're only 10 over, and we have options to restructure Aaron Donald. We have options to restructure Cooper Cup. Like, we could restructure Leonard Floyd if we really wanted to. Um, I don't think they're going to do Allen Robinson at all. I would please don't. Um, but either way, the Rams have options, especially Cooper Cup. I think that's going to be one that I would look to do. Um, but it was just silly that people are talking about that, and silly to say the Rams are going to just accept whatever. I would hope not. Like, Zach, at least for me, I would say it's going to be a disappointment if we don't get a first and a second out of it. I think you can get two first for Jalen Ramsey. What's your minimum that you would be happy with, and then what do you think we'll realistically get for him?
So I'm still in the mindset that he's sticking around. There's a lot of, I mean, even his own cryptic tweets that are posted out there, based on some of the other information that's been spilled over the last 24 hours. I'm kind of glad we were originally going to do this podcast last night, and I'm kind of glad that we kind of waited the full day to kind of see what all was coming in. I think he's going to stay. There's a lot of, like I said, a lot of stuff to go into it. But if he were to be traded, I mean, at minimum, it would have to be a first for me. It would have to be a first and a third for this draft. A lot
Really?
of
A
people are
first
thinking.
and a third?
I think that's minimum, and that's because it would be both for this draft. Um, Anything else, I think you're looking at a first, second, or two firsts. I mean, I think that's absolute bottom bones minimum that I would take. Anything less than that, I mean, it's just not worth it. Even if it's multiple picks, I don't think that's worth anything. Maybe a first, third, and something else to compensate would maybe be should be my minimum. Um, but like I said, I think a first and a second makes the most sense. I don't know if there's anybody who would trade two firsts for him. The only maybe the Lions, just because they have so many picks. They might, maybe the Eagles too. But
I
other than
definitely I see the Lions possibly because they have two picks. They could trade the six in their next year first. And I think that's a fair haul for Ramsey. Like they really need DBs and they have missed on DBs in the draft. And they would still have a first later in the draft. Not too late. Like I think they have like pick 18 or something like that. So it's not like they're getting completely messed up by trading away the number 6 pick. And that would be good enough return for the Rams where you can get a starting cornerback to replace Ramsey at 6 or someone else. Um, but
So I
either
will note
way,
that the Detroit Lions just sign a former Eagles to their cornerback spot. So they signed cornerback Mac McCain to their cornerback room just this past week too. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, or if that will impact anything or not. I mean, it will be interesting because I mean, if you look at the Lions, I mean, shoot, they're starting to become basically obviously I wouldn't say the rejects of the Rams, but the ones who moved on from the Rams. I mean, shoot, you have Jared Goff, you had Brockers, he's now been released from the Lions. You had Josh Reynolds was on the team. Um, Now, if you potentially put Ramsey on the team, it's just an interesting play. I think it would be a smart move for Ramsey because I think he would thrive there. But I think the problem that a lot of these teams are going to face is yes, you're going to have to um, you're going to have to figure out that draft capital. But it came out today that Ramsey is wanting a new contract with whatever team picks him up. Um, so that will be interesting to see how that all plays through because I think the Rams are going to treat him right. He's a
yeah.
valuable member of that team, and I think that whatever comes, it's going to be a mutual decision, like it should be, especially for a high caliber player like him. Um, and they
We're
don't want to mess that
paying
up.
uh we're paying Bobby Wagner's signing bonus when we didn't have to. That's 3 mil we could have saved. And, I think when you treat players well, players will want to play for you. Um, I'm not saying the Rams are perfect. They have their problems, especially a running back. Uh, but for the most part, with Ramsey, I do think they'll do good by him if we do trade him. I don't think the Rams will are forced to trade him right now. I think you do irritate Ramsey and you make it harder to re-sign him again. I don't think we're going to end up re-signing him. Whether or not that would be a good idea, anyways, given us rebuilding after this year. But for the
I think
Lions,
that
think about it. You could run with Goff. Goff had a solid year. You don't have to get another quarterback. You have a foundation around Goff. You have really stud wide receivers. You have a really good O line. You have I would say they had a great tight end. They traded him away. But their defense is the thing that's lacking and that has hurt them in the last 2 years. You put Ramsey on there and then you can draft a few more pieces around him and still have a first round pick. it sounds kind of stupid for them not to do it and go all in. If the Rams proved anything, when you have a solid roster and you have a few holes, fill those holes. Stop trying to just take dart throws and draft. The Rams are a little bit in a different situation given the age of our roster, given the holes in our roster. So it kind of makes sense. And I said this in previous pods, Zach, you're not going to have a higher value for Ramsey than this offseason in the future. He's only going to diminish in value when it comes to trading him.
And I think that's why they're talking the most about this right now, is just because of that fear that if Ramsey wants to leave, this might be his only opportunity. And the same thing with the Rams, like this might be your only opportunity to get something back. Um, and so I think there is a mutual consensus there of, you know, this could be the year, and then everything else is unknown. I mean, if he had again another exceptional season this year, we might get lucky, and there might be some, something that they can deal with. But at this point, you're only going to get the most. I think the Rams would probably get the most out of it if they did it this year. But again, I think this also would be the most for Ramsey, especially if he wants a new contract. Um, when you I can't I was trying to go through my Twitter to see who posted it. But someone posted that, like, the top cornerbacks and what they get paid, at Ramsey's by far gets the most, or has the most, um, gets paid the most out of all of the currently active over 30 cornerbacks.
Well, he's 27 right now.
27. Oh, maybe I got to figure out what exactly that I read that. But yes.
Well, that's the problem. I feel like a lot of people have been hating on Ramsey this year for some reason in the NFL. I'm not saying he was like fantastic, best corner in the league. He wasn't, but he was a lot better than people give him credit for, especially because he doesn't get targeted as much as other corners because people are afraid to throw his way. And not to mention, we played a ton of zone last year, and we talked about it. There was plenty of times where the safeties did not follow their assignments, didn't go to the correct place, and what was the camera shot? Ramsey chasing after a wide receiver, them catching in a zone that a safety was supposed to be at, and getting a touchdown or making a big play. And that's all the casual NFL fans saw, and therefore they're like, "Oh, Ramsey is washed." When like in certain situations, he was very much the same dog of a cornerback we have been accustomed to. So I think this is the team just saying, give us your best offers. Give us. Trying to see if they can get kind of like a trade. We saw it a few times last year where their teams are trying to raise the value of these players and get the most picks possible for a player, or at least have inquiries about it and see what offers are out there on the table. And if there's something too good to pass up, kind of like how the Rams just pushed everything in the middle of the table for Stafford, and we kind of overbid other people, or like the 49ers did with McCaffrey last year, overbid other people. If someone wants to do that for Ramsey, and like someone offers three first, and you didn't think you were going to get that, Les need to be like, yeah, I'll trade Ramsey for three first. I'm not saying we're going to get that, but like you wouldn't know if you didn't ask for inquiries, and I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. Um, I don't know. It would stink to see him go. Like I said, I feel like we're losing a core member, and I think we're just 1 year off from, even our projections. Kind of last week we kind of discussed it, and yes, we kind of see some tea leaves on the wall for some players, but um, this one, I think we envisioned possibly 1 year too soon, especially if they were going to try to make a big run again. The cornerbacks we have right now are good, are fine, but they're not elite yet.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because you would think 5 mil isn't enough to be worth trading a premier cornerback. Um, it's 5.5. So, I mean, let's let me look at Cooper Cup and see what a restructure. We could save 14 mil in restructuring Cooper Cup. Like there's your cap right there. Basically, after cutting Bobby Wagner, restructure Cooper Cup. Bam. Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get not wanting to restructure Ramsey because again, if you restructure Ramsey and then you go on a rebuild and Ramsey demands a trade with that type of contract, you're not going to get a lot for him. That's the problem. Is he still has 2 years on this current contract. If you try to restructure him and then try to trade him next year, that's going to be a nightmare
Yeah.
of assets. You're going to get like a second for him at best. Let alone if he's asking for, like, you know what I mean? Like if he's on a 1 year deal. So it makes sense timeline wise. It just sucks it has to be this off season.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot. I mean, yeah, last year we had Von Miller leave, we had Robert Woods leave. We had some other players leave, but this year now starting to feel a little bit more hurt. And there's a lot of people out there. Um, fans can be disappointed that players leave. It's going to happen. We yes, it's a business, and we should all realize that this is just a business deal. We shouldn't take things personally. But some of these people, like they truly enjoy watching these players play on the field, and seeing them move on, especially when they were on the championship team. It's kind of disappointing, which it is. It is disappointing. I mean, shoot, we're all going to be disappointed when AD retires. We're all going to be disappointed when Cooper Cup leaves. It's just going to happen eventually, and it's going to stink. So yes, we need to get used to these kind of maneuvers and things like that. But that still doesn't mean that it doesn't really hurt inside that one of our favorite players is now leaving. So
Hmm. Yeah, the Rams, if they restructured Rob Havenstein, I believe they would save 4 mil. Yeah, 4.2 mil. That's I would do that. I think Rob Havenstein is still has a good 4 or 5 years. Let's talk about Higby, Zach. I think this is someone people haven't been mentioning. He would be a cap saving of 4 mil and dead cap hit of 5, and that's pre. If it's post, then Higby is 6 mil. Um, eh, do you think Higby could be gone?
yeah, I mean, I think that he could be. Again, it would be he's been on the team for forever, forever for as far as we know. But yeah, I think he's definitely a hit, and there's a lot of teams I think looking for a decent, um, above. I still think he's above average as far as a tight end goes, and there's a lot of teams out there. Our good friends Detroit is, they're going to be looking for a tight end. The Chargers, I think, are another team that will be looking for a tight end. If depending on how there's just a lot of teams that could be up for one. And other than, the Chiefs and the 49ers, those are probably the only two teams that really aren't looking for a tight end. Oh, and the Ravens. Other than that, I
They,
think every team is always keeping that option open.
they could save 6.7 mil by trading him post June. Which I don't think you're gonna get a lot for him pre June. So like if you trade him post for a third or fourth to kind of offload his cap, um, potentially I don't know what free agents are gonna be out there. Like maybe OBJ, you want to sign OBJ for 4 mil, 5 mil. Um, I
That's the
definitely
hardest
think
part
Rob.
is
I definitely
The
think
hardest part.
Rob Havenstein should be restructured and Cooper Cup should be restructured.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes the most sense. I mean, we saw this week that Robert Woods is now available. Um, Fans are clamoring for him to come back. I don't really see that happening. We're kind of stuck. I mean, I don't want to say stuck because I don't really think we gave Allen Robinson really um, the full experience that he really needs, or gave him the full. But anyways, yeah, we
He was not good those first 6 weeks
he
when he
wasn't,
had
and
Stafford.
but let's just remember that he didn't play. He didn't have any time with Stafford during the interim. During, he didn't. Matthew Stafford was on the sidelines, watching, Wolford and Perkins throw to Robinson, and that's hard. That's hard when you don't have that chemistry like you had with, Cooper Cup. I mean, even with A Rob and OBJ, like they started to. It took them a couple weeks for OBJ to kind of get used to things, but it worked. And I just don't think that they really ever had the time, once they were in game mode and once they were in, hurry up and catch up and try to get back into the swing of things. I don't think they ever had time to build that chemistry. They were more in worry mode than they were in, let's dissect this, take time, and let's figure this out. They were more in like, this is a sense of urgency. We need to fix this, and so we're throwing everything in the kitchen sink with it. And obviously that wasn't successful, and um, I, it
Ooh.
just
So they would lose money if they cut him pre-June. Talking about Allen Robinson. Post they wouldn't. They would break even. Trading pre-June they would. If they traded Allen Robinson, they would save 6.8 mil. If they traded him post, they would save 15 mil. 15
yeah,
mil.
but I mean the performance that he's given this past year, and and honestly, yes, we all thought him having Stafford, this is going to boost his career. Look who he's had before. When you don't have a good performing year in several years, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of people looking to make deals with
Well,
you.
no, you
Uh,
would have to offload him with picks. You would be paying someone to take his contract, like
but I
we
don't
do
know.
with Peters and Talib.
I mean, I guess it's possible, but I mean, you know, I
We
don't think
do
the
with
Rams are going to make
Talib.
that move.
Uh, I mean, 15 mil. It depends who they're trying to sign, and he's not. I don't know. If he's not performing, I wouldn't be surprised after a few games. I think that would be later in the season type deal. If he's not performing, if OBJ is still free agent, kind of healing or waiting to see how the season's going, and we're winning, I could see them paying someone to like take his contract and trying to go after OBJ or a free agent that taking a shot at someone else. He was just miserably bad with
Yeah.
us last year. It looked like he was invisible, and Stafford wasn't looking at him for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season.
And
Um,
and again, I still come back to that is like, I mean, again, we need to make sure that Cooper Cup isn't always the number one target. But when you're in
the
the
only
red
target.
and right, I mean, you said he didn't even look at him, and that's just because Cup is the safety blanket and has been the safety blanket for many years. Let's be for real. Like, whether you had Brandon Cooks, whether you had uh, Robert Woods, whether you had XYZ, it always was Cooper Cup was the safety blanket. I mean, we can all pretty much guarantee that if Cooper Cup was in the Super Bowl in 2019, they would have won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of player he is. He is underrated. He is undervalued. Um, and he's that good. But when you have that player that is that good, you need to make sure as a quarterback that you are also passing it around so that you can make sure that your best player always has the opportunity to make the ball. And yes, he was still the leading reception, going into his injury, but you you got to spread the ball around, or everyone's always going to figure out your scheme, and eventually that's not going to work in the bigger games.
So let's say Zach, let's do kind of like a just go through the motions. Talk about if the Rams restructure a few guys and cut Bobby Wagner and they're making all these moves. Uh, do you think it's worth it if they focus on offense? If they go after someone who else, like other teams are going to start having the same issues because there's a lot of teams worse than us. Like Michael Thomas could be someone we could go after. Keenan Allen, like what if the Rams are looking to retool an offense, get a few linemen, maybe sign someone in free agency that's a decent tackle, decent guard. Um, they get a few pieces in the draft on offense and they want to be high powered again. And they're just willing to accept that the defense is going to have to hurt because of it. Because a good defense didn't help us last year. Um, right? Like you got to be able to score points in this league. So who do you think free agent wise the Rams could target or potentially free agent like Keenan Allen or something like that? Because I think Keenan Allen's going to be available.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to think about, yes, I think Keenan Allen would be great on the team. The problem, I just come back to, who are they going to move aside? You think of who they currently have right now. You have Cooper Cup, not going to get rid of, obviously. Al Robinson, I don't. You said the numbers, but I don't think you can get rid of him. Yes, I know we could throw draft picks, but right now it sounds like we're trying to get draft picks. Now I think it's
You
weird that
just
we're
don't
trying to.
play him.
But
Or
you
you
still
put him in
have
the
you still have
rotation.
you still have Van Jefferson, who's on his 4th-year deal or 4th-year rookie contract. So, this will be his last year, probably. You still have Tutu Atwell, which he has been, he had a couple of those explosive plays. You still have Ben Skoranek. You still have all these players that are in depth. And I don't see how you can bring back, like, yes, it's fine to have OBJ, and that's great. But again, it's, if they can get it, great. But
Well,
I don't know if
we
they're gonna
had
slide those
seven
players down.
wide receivers last year. We had McCutcheon. Like McCutcheon just won't be on the team. You put Keenan Allen there. You put him above the depth chart, second the Cup. Like I really think that's a night and day different. Like everyone else on the team outside of Cooper Cup wasn't getting consistently open. That's just a fact, reality of the situation we were in. We need
I
someone
wish
else that can beat man,
I really
and
wish that
Keenan
we
Allen can
we
do that.
I really
Or
wish that we would have saw Van Jefferson, Allen Robinson, and Cooper Cup playing at the same time. I feel like that would have been a little different. We never did, really.
uh,
Um,
I didn't they play one or two games all on the like. I guess Van Jefferson got back what week
he
7.
got after the bye, so yeah, week 7. And then so maybe played one or two games, maybe. I mean, we would have to go back and look, but it wasn't
I
that many that all three were playing at the same time.
I always take the point of view you never accept mediocrity, and our wide receivers last year were mediocre. They were. Van Jefferson was mediocre. Allen Robinson was mediocre. Yes, I get. We had backups in for most of the year, half of the year. But the first half of the
But
year, if you just go by the first half of the year, it was still mediocre and awful. The only time anything ever happened was Cooper Cup, and that's not acceptable. We have to make a change at wide receiver, wholesale. Maybe you don't have to change that third wide receiver. We have a few people who could fill that role. Van Jefferson, Tutu. I get that. Maybe Allen Robinson. But that second wide receiver role, we have to have a solid second wide receiver, or we're not going to make progress.
I I don't necessarily 100% agree. I mean, I think that yes, if we could add, another wide receiver, I think that's fine. I think that the problem is that we really need to get our offensive line back up and working, and then we need to get our run game. Because if you don't have a run game, you cannot keep the defense honest with your receivers. And just because you have three mid to high tier, even if you had 3 high tier wide receivers, if you're only throwing the ball, the defense is just going to know you, and those high octane players are going to look mediocre because that's all they're doing. So if you don't retool the offensive line, you don't get the running game moving. You don't have anything. When the Rams were at its best, they had a run game. Whether it was with Gurley,
That's only been Todd Gurley. I mean, even during the Super Bowl run, our run game wasn't good. It was fine. It basically we would run 10 to 15 times a game, average 3-4 yards a carry.
well,
That way we
so
could do
the
play action.
playoffs weren't necessarily superstardom when it came to that, but I mean, in our, we had the worst November ever, and then we came in and had a phenomenal running game in the last 4 weeks. So
Yeah, but
I don't
look at
know.
the teams we played, the defenses. We didn't play good defenses, especially run defenses. I think if I'm remembering, we faced two of the worst run defenses at the near the end of our regular season run in 2021. It, either way,
But here's the thing. I mean, you watch the Chiefs. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl with who? Juju. That's the only wide receiver that you can.
yeah, but they retooled their entire O line, and they
But
had
that's my
Valdez,
point. I
Scantling.
think that.
I mean,
But I think that proves my point. If you retool the O line, give Stafford more time.
Stafford isn't moving
Help
like
in the.
Mahomes.
Well, that's fine. That's fair. But at the same time, you can.
I like Stafford. He's not moving like Mahomes.
But I still think that if you retool the offensive line, you can have those 3 receivers, 4 receivers, whatever, that you have them have a better chance if you give them a second more time
Yeah,
to
but
throw the
even
ball.
old Juju is still leaps and bounds better than any of our wide receivers last year outside of Cup. Any of them.
So
They were
so
that bad.
so if you make it Cup and Juju Schuster, then you got to keep moving because
I would be fine with that. I feel like Juju is that bare minimum level that you want as a second wide receiver uh, in this
I
type
just
of
don't think we
offense
truly
if
got to
we're
see Allen
throwing.
Robinson. I mean, we got to see Van Jefferson make some good plays when we had Mayfield out there. I mean, he was really the safety blanket for Mayfield when he was successful.
Stafford
Um,
wasn't thrown to him for a reason. I mean, look at OBJ. It took 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and then he was thrown to him and he trusted him. He clearly never gained his trust, and he wasn't getting open. Like, I kept on watching him, and it was like he was disappearing into the game, and he
are you
wasn't
talking about
getting
Allen
into a
Robinson or Van
rotation.
Jefferson?
Robinson. Van
Robinson. Okay.
Jefferson was better, which is sad because we're not paying Van Jefferson 17 mil.
Right. I mean, yeah. Right.
Like Van Jefferson was our best wide receiver outside of Cup, and I
Yeah.
would definitely
I mean,
be
that was.
fine. Van Jefferson's fine for wide receiver 3.
I just don't
I'm
want to
just saying
pay.
2 is
Again, I get what you're saying. It would be great to bring one in, but we're already paying a ridiculous amount for someone who I think still could potentially have potential, especially if we're not going to get anything out of them. I just think bringing on more debt into the weapon room. I don't know. I don't know. I
I
mean, if
think
it's
if you get
OBJ,
Keenan
maybe.
Allen, or if you get OBJ or Keenan Allen for 6 mil for 1 year, I think it's worth doing that
Well,
for the offense to be more dynamic.
OBJ won't
Or
take that.
Michael
So
Thomas.
I mean, OBJ is looking for a longer term contract, so there's no way that they're going to do it. He won't even probably take a 1 year
Yeah,
deal,
but
like
no
a
one else is
3 year with a
gonna.
1 year option.
I don't think
I
no
mean,
one
maybe.
is gonna sign him for like longer than that. He has too
Yeah.
many injuries. Like maybe I don't know. Like I would sign OBJ 2 years. I don't think that's super risky.
All right. Well, man.
Well, guys,
See, this is what I told you at the very beginning of the podcast. analysts are fighting amongst each other, fans are fighting amongst each other, commentators are fighting against each other. Even members on the same podcast are disagreeing with how the Rams should do it. But the only people who
Uh,
really know what the Rams are going to do are the Rams themselves. So
Snead.
we're just going to have to Les Snead, Sean McVay, even
Snead
the
is a
players.
menace, man. He's causing issues. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad, but it's definitely
Yeah.
worth going after picks. I think we have preached on this for a year now. The dynamic between picks and veteran players is changing right now. It used to be 5 years ago, veteran players could be traded for very little picks. The Rams changed that, and now you can trade veteran players for a lot of picks. And I think you can see the Rams change their method, like change the way they do trades, and they do it the opposite. Jordan Rodriguez has done a good job saying that they are aware of the value of picks and like they are open to shifting. This team is constantly moving and trying to adjust, and I I hope that's what they plan on doing because I think just sitting here, cutting a few people, getting below the cap, and not making some big moves. You either
We just
need to make big moves this year or rebuild next year.
I mean, I think at this point, we're as fans, we're really just trying to see us be successful. And what does successful mean? Obviously, when going to the Super Bowl is obviously the ultimate goal every year. But there's 32 teams. It's not very likely that you're going to go and win the Super Bowl back to back. Obviously, there's a team who will not be named on this podcast who has done that before. But in reality, you're looking like if you're lucky, one every five years that you even go back to the Super Bowl. And again, that's kind of what you're looking at. And so I think when we're talking about success, it's just winning. If you're having a winning culture and you're always staying above that 500 mark, you're getting to the playoffs, you're making it to the second, third round of the playoffs, getting to that championship game. As much as we dislike the 49ers, I mean, shoot, they keep getting back to the championship game every couple years now, it seems like. And yes, they don't make it to the ultimate goal, and even if they get to the Super Bowl, they don't get to win, but they're still making it happen. And that's what I think that's the success we want to see. We want to succeed the plus 500. We want to see the consistency of getting to the playoffs every year, making it past the first round. Yes, it'll be disappointing every time when we lose, but at the same time, building that record. I mean, shoot, yes, if you're a Cowboys fan, I mean, I feel sorry for you, but at least for a lot of years, you're on a winning team. You get to the playoffs. You maybe make it past the first round, maybe not, but you know you still get there. Um, it's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would give to be us last year. A lot of teams that have never even been to a Super Bowl. So you got to be grateful for where it is. I would like the team to be winning. I would like it to make good decisions. But the part of taking big swings is you're going to have big misses. And I think we're learning the miss part, unfortunately. Other teams just, it's it is the exception being the Chiefs. It is the exception being the Patriots for as long as they are. Mm, Only one or two teams for 5 to 7 years will be like that, where they're consistently winning in the championships. Um, and I think asking for that is kind of unfair, and you got to just appreciate the fact that we won a Super Bowl recently, and we've been winning with McVay, and I think we're going to be winning again next season. I would be very surprised if we go below 500 again. I'd be
Again, I
very
mean,
surprised.
and it's always goes with this. It's like it's that saying, in McVay we trust. I mean, he wouldn't be coming back to a team where they are going to just like, I mean, for so much talk about him moving on, him getting a broadcast booth after this year, reading, if you go and read Jordan Rodriguez's column on The Athletic, um, I now support The Athletic because of this last article that came out. And it was great. I mean, just to learn the complexity of the situation and things like that. It was a really good article about his mindset and just like going back and like reading that, it's just like, man, I would have quit. I would have gone and, taken the millions and been a broadcaster if that was my option. But he didn't. And he wants to stay and he wants to see this team succeed. And McVay is not a coach who's just in it just to, just to kind of sail across. Um, he
Well,
wants to
Zach, I
win.
will I will appreciate when you turn down 20 million to stay on the pod. I'll appreciate it.
I'll, I'll let you know. I'm going to be at the combine this week, so if things pop up, I might be piecing out if I get a
Hey,
contract.
just mention that you once talked to McVay, and I'm sure you'll get an assistant head coach job. Right?
Oh,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's how
offensive
it works.
coordinator. I mean,
Uh,
I mean,
dude, they'll be like,
I'll take
"Oh,
what.
you know McVay? You're a Rams fan. You must be good at offense."
Hey, I'll take even the guy who squirts water into someone's
Oh,
mouth. I'll be one of those people if that's what it takes.
okay.
But yeah, so yeah, if you guys are going to be at the combine, please hit me up. I'm going to try to cover it. Typically I only try to do 1 or 2 days, but I've kind of been talking to some other people, and so I might be doing, if not every day, at least half, if not 3 days worth. I think I'm even convincing my dad to drive up from Cincinnati
We
to
might be
partake in it.
picking in the
So
first round, so you
yeah,
may have
but
something due. Oh, more
we may,
stuff.
and we may have news this week. So I'll try to get some videos and meet up with some other fellow Rams fans who I know who are going to be in town as well. So looking forward to that. But I guess we should wrap this thing up.
Yep.
All right. So, oh man, I guess technically we're entered season 3 of the East Coast Rams podcast. We finished with season 2 last week, so officially kicking that off. You can always stay connected with us. If you have any questions or questions, you can email us at feedback@eastcoastrams.com or hit us up on Twitter. Our official East Coast Rams Twitter account is at East Coast Rams. You can find our personal Twitter accounts down here.
Right
Down,
there. Down there. Yep.
right there. So feel free to follow us, DM us. Let's keep on building this community. Ashton, anything else you want to say before we wrap this thing up?
No, thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Comment if you're listening to the podcast. Love the support. Season 3 is starting off a little bit more rocky than we would like, but we got through season 2. I think we can get through anything now, Zach.
Yes, we will try not to keep bickering at each other and who's right and who's wrong as far as how the offense should be structured moving forward. But that's what keeps things spicy in life.
Yes.
Hopefully, we keep, number 5. I had to throw up the 5 jersey for this one.
Yeah.
For this podcast. I love Ramsey, love what he does, love the energy that he brings to this team. But if he does leave, more power to him. He's going to make the best decision for him and his family. The Rams organization will keep on moving, keep on trugging. The fans will still keep on rooting for the Rams no matter who leaves or who goes. We found that out over the last several years, especially. But it's fun. It's fun. It's a fun thing that we keep on talking about. So with that, we're going to wrap things up. If you don't follow us on YouTube, go to youtube.com/@EastCoastRams. That's where you can find all of our videos because we are now in living color. Can you believe that? Yeah, and so that's going to wrap it up, Ramley. So as we say every time while we exit the podcast, horns up.
Horns up.